Well, hello and welcome. My name is Clark Fraley, and I am the Executive Director of Pastors for Oklahoma Kids, a nonprofit that advocates for 700,000 children in Oklahoma's public schools. Today, I am joined by Claire Grace, and I want to let you know a little bit about her. I found out about her through actually the Tulsa Parent Legislative Action Committee group, so PLAC out of Tulsa. And she was advocating about a piece of legislation coming up, SB 1442, which deals with SEL. And this is something that Senator Jett has put forward as saying that this is something that we don't really want in our schools, tying it to a lot of kind of nefarious things. And I was like, I need to learn more about this because I am not an expert on this at all. I don't really know that much about it. And so when I saw her information, she has a long list of things. I could spend 45 minutes going over all of her accomplishments. But in general, I saw that she'd done a lot of great things in Oklahoma, including starting a nonprofit group and being a part of, let's see what it's called, See, Stop, Start message, getting this message across, helping kids out in schools. And then, of course, some of the biggest things happened over COVID for you, it looks like. 2020, the Diana Award from 15 folks in the United States, and also being a Special Olympics Oklahoma representative at the national level, Ronald Reagan Leadership Award in 2020. I mean, I could just keep reading. I don't have time to read all this, but it's so amazing. All the things you've done, and now kind of leading this movement of speaking. I looked over kind of the things that you do for schools, and it was really cool to me that like you had this thing that said, look, we're not going to have a charge for you at the school. We want to come and be a part and share this message about seeing people as people first and not using derogatory terms to describe other people, and then how to begin to kind of almost restart and have positive interactions with people who are completely different than you. And so I think that was one of the things that jumped out to me that I wanted to talk to you about today. But welcome, Claire Grace. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So just right off the bat, again, I am not an expert on SEL. My limited knowledge is very small. I've heard these concepts. I've actually had ACEs training for pastors. And I went to one in Oklahoma City that went over some of the deplorable conditions some of our children are raised in our state, went over some of the social workers were describing things that I had never heard of before and were just atrocious. And then I got to work with a organization here in Oklahoma City that delivers beds to children. And I now have been in some homes in just deplorable situations where children were lying on the floor in animal waste, and just broke my heart for that kind of understanding of how different those kids, their experience of life is in my home state. And so then looking at the social emotional learning, I see that we're trying to look at, whether it's someone that's in poverty, or it's someone that, has a different hair color, or it's someone that just has a different ability set, or it's an exceptional child, of looking at how we kind of interact with them and how we treat them. And ultimately, that's what SEL I got out of what I understand about it. So I wanted to hear from you, kind of help me understand and help us all understand and process this, what this is like. And so let's start out what SEL is, and then we can address what SEL isn't.
I think that's a good place to start. So SEL stands for social emotional learning, and it's really just education that teaches people how to be inclusive, compassionate, respectful of others, regardless of your differences, like you were mentioning, and just how to also have emotional management. So you know how to go off and succeed, how to deal with conflict. And so it's really, really crucial for kids, especially in like pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. That's a lot of what we're teaching our students right now. Before you can even get into more difficult like numbers and English and all of that, you have to teach them these foundational skills. And so this bill, Senate Bill 1442, takes that completely away. And it's also kind of a matter of where does the line get drawn when it says you can't have anything like of this sort. So for example, if one student is bullying another, is the teacher not allowed to step in and say, that's not appropriate, this isn't okay? Because what this bill would say is essentially, school is not about learning anything except for numbers and math. And something that I think is really important that you mentioned is there are a lot of students growing up in poverty and in really terrible situations. And a big argument that I hear is, Why can't people be taught this at home? Why aren't the families teaching
Mm,
this? It's like what you're saying, not all families do teach this, unfortunately.
right.
And so you see a lot of students not getting this education anywhere, and that puts them in a really bad place for the rest of their life. Additionally, what's the problem with reinforcing it? So you get it at home. The school is a completely different environment from home,
Right.
and getting that reinforced. So that's essentially what social emotional learning is.
So, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I had this deacon in my church many years ago now, because I'm really old now. But when I was young, I was in my 20s. He was really having coffee with me on a regular basis and asking why we didn't teach things in the schools and the churches like that would help kids in a practical level, like personal finance, like how to balance your checkbook, like how to change a tire. And I remember saying, like, well, don't kids learn that at home? And he said, no, because he was substitute teaching in our local school. And he was saying, no, these kids don't know anything. They're not learning a lot of this stuff. And so to me, again, like you say, is like, you think it's all going to be taught at home, but it's just like some of those little soft skills that you don't think about. And then home is a much different environment. You bring up a great point. It's a totally different environment where you probably all have a very similar culture. And then you come to school and you have vastly different cultures and home lives. And so, yeah, okay, wow. All right, I'm wrapping my head a little bit around this. So some of the research I was looking at, and I think some of it was on your website too, was talking about this idea of helping kids kind of respond positively to not just like a difference, but like even something in their own life. Like they get frustrated with how they're learning maybe, or a mistake they've made, and kind of how to process that instead of just maybe the outburst or the anger or something like that. And then the other thing was like you said, I think promoting positive behavior through not like reprimanding or punishment, but just kind of an identity thing, like you're more self-aware maybe. Can you speak about some of the practical benefits that maybe SEL might have like that?
Yes, I have lots and lots of statistics. So first of all, SEL is associated with lowering rates of depression and anxiety. Right now, we are seeing way, way, way too many students in our school system who have anxiety, have depression, are being bullied, and then having these things as a response. Lots of teen suicide, which I don't know how anyone could not want to lessen that. And
Right.
SEL is proven to lessen that. Additionally, it lowers other risky behaviors like drug use, teen pregnancy, something that we really struggle with in Oklahoma. And it also decreases dropout rates between 5 and 12% in schools that utilize SEL. And additionally, 79% of employers overwhelmingly identify social emotional skills as being the most important qualities needed for success, but at the same time, the hardest qualities to find in the labor force. So when I say that these social emotional learning is setting them up for success in the future, like that proves it. Employers want to see these skills, and if we aren't teaching our students these skills in Oklahoma, we're setting them up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around why we even have legislation like this, because it seems like, and it's a very punitive one. I read in the bill something about taking away student or state aid for the
Mhm.
school that participates in this. And I'm thinking, from what you're saying and what it looks like you've actually done in schools and developing this curriculum and starting to deliver it, it sounds to me like we would want to invest more in this.
Mhm. So essentially, where we're getting the negative response from this, I believe at least, is that one, people are starting to affiliate it with critical race theory, which
Ah,
is something that the Congress has taken action on, and it really has nothing to do with critical race. It has nothing to do with race, period. The
right.
closest overlap that you're going to see is you're teaching people to respect people regardless of their differences, and that you don't know what's going on in their life, which is the closest it gets to race, and of course doesn't even specifically tap on race. And then also that it's instilling specific beliefs in students. They even included this in the definition of social emotional learning in Senate Bill 1442.
Hmm.
But I've never seen any kind of legislation that imposes a specific belief. The closest belief you get is basically to treat people justly, which I
Mm,
would say is something that is ubiquitous, like everywhere. I feel like everyone can agree that you should treat people kindly. So for example, so you can kind of get an idea of what a social emotional learning curriculum looks like, just at the like highest level, I've looked through a lot of them. I've developed my own, which Pastor Clark kind of touched on a little bit. And it's called the See, Stop, Start approach. So see people as people first, stop using any kind of derogatory terms, or I say mean words with my younger kiddos. And so take that step back, and then start that positive interaction. Anything as simple as just a wave or a smile or holding open the door for someone. Or if you can't bring yourself to do that, be neutral. It's being neutral is easier than going out of your way to be negative. So things like that. So this is a more like social approach more than emotional. Obviously, teachers can vary lots of different types of curriculum. And it's something that I've integrated into 4 subjects because the best cell is integrated into classes. So if the See, Stop, Start approach kind of teaches you anything, it's like it does not touch on any of those things. And it's a really good example of what cell curriculum looks like. So in practice, you can see it's not touching on any of those things that I feel like people are afraid of it touching on.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, it sounds like a couple of things to me. It sounds like it's not really new. It sounds like something my grandma said: if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
And then it kind of sounds like Jesus in the Great Commandments, where he says, love your neighbor as yourself. Like it's treat others the way you would like to be treated. That's very
Which
interesting.
is why I don't know why we're so afraid of this, because we've been teaching kids this forever. And then all of a sudden there's all this fear and it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to me, I'm thinking, I mean, I try to be empathetic and put myself in other people's shoes, and I'm trying to rationalize this, but I'm thinking, I don't know that whatever political side of whatever spectrum, you wouldn't want someone to respect your opinion and give you the freedom to be who you are and express that without someone bullying you and someone. But I mean, as I think about it, maybe some of these people that I'm seeing that are yelling and screaming at each other, maybe they could use a little SEL in their life. They could use a little bit of that instead of screaming at school boards and things. They could use some of this training. Okay, so so this program you're doing, it's kind of like a seminar maybe, or it's for large groups, right? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So the curriculum right now is in the research phase. Because of COVID, it's hard to get into schools and test it.
Gotcha.
But I'm still doing the public speaking initiative. I've spoken to over 7,000 people,
Oh, wow.
primarily students, about my See, Stop, Start approach. So like shameless personal plug. If you're from a school anywhere in Oklahoma, my email is info@seestopstart.org. And I would absolutely love to speak to your organization if you're interested in this message at all. But yes, the public speaking side of things is more of like a seminar, like one-time kind of cell input, whereas my curriculum is kind of still in the research phase, but that would be implemented into 4 different subjects.
Very cool. That's awesome. And I think you were telling me part of kind of your motivation for becoming interested in this was because of your sibling. Is that right?
Exactly. My sister has a one-of-a-kind chromosomal arrangement, which actually means that she's the only one in the entire world with her specific chromosomes, which results in a physical and mental disability. And she is one of the most incredible human beings I know. But sorry, just like thinking it gets me a little teary. But like growing up, I would see people treating her so poorly and so like different. They would treat her differently than they would treat me. And from a young age, I was like, that's just not right. And then it really hit me that this is something that is not really inherent in kids. Kids don't just grow up hateful. It's something that's taught. And if kids can be taught over time to hate, they can most definitely be taught kindness, emotional regulation, and all these different social skills that are so crucial. And that is what cell is. Cell is, I mean, in the closest terms to me, people treating my sister nicely, and with respect, just like they treat anybody else.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's great. Well, I think this is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us about this, because I mean, I'm learning. I'm always trying to learn about things like this, and this was one that was not on my radar, this 1442, until I saw you post about it, and I was like, hey, I need to learn about this, because if this is something that's helpful and is just kind of getting a bad rap, then I don't want to support that, and I want to be supportive of folks that are trying to get that message out. And then when I looked through your stuff, and I was like, my goodness, what has she not done at this early age already? And then just to see that you have such a heart for people, and that you're investing your time and your life in this, and you have a powerful, I think our stories and our passions a lot of time come out of our life experiences. I know mine have. So just to see you with that is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Now you have as I mentioned, a petition right now that is to try to get the attention of the Senate, I assume, Ed committee, or is it Ed committee? I don't know who's running it, but
it's actually under appropriations. It was from
appropriations.
education.
Okay.
It should not be
Gotcha.
in appropriations. That's kind
Yeah,
of
that's
some
interesting.
sneaky stuff going on there.
Yeah. Okay. So, but Senate Bill 1442. And how can folks find out about this petition if they want to be a part of it?
Yeah, so right now, basically what I'm doing is trying to get as many organizations and individuals as possible on board with opposing this. So I'm working with a lot of different organizations right now to actually oppose it. So that will be in an update on the petition. You can see the list that I already have going of organizations who oppose this. But as an individual, what each and every one of you guys can do is go to change.org/no the word to TO SB 1442 and just sign that petition. It literally takes 30 seconds. And hopefully the more signatures we get whenever I go to those senators and say, look at all these people who are opposing this. I mean, you can see the comments of the teachers on that petition. I mean, it really pulls your heartstrings, but you'll see these are all the individuals, all the organizations who are against this. And I mean, the more people we can have, the better. And hopefully they can see how many people oppose this. So it'd mean the world to me if you guys just took 30 seconds out of your day and just went to that link.
Yeah, for sure. I'll put that in the description on the video, so that'll be linked there as well. We'll share it on all our social media sites.
Thank you.
And just get that word out that if you're interested in joining this and being a part of this, it's something that I learned about through a teacher in my church, and she posted a Facebook post that could be a small novel, but very passionate about it and very wanting to get people's attention and say, hey, this is coming up and this is ridiculous that it's getting it's kind of like, it seemed like some of the teachers I've seen, it's kind of like defending a friend. They're like, this person's getting a bad rap and they shouldn't be. They're being drugged through the mud for political purposes and not anything to do with this. And most of the time, if it's like just silly legislation, I try to ignore it and be like, no one's going to hear about this. But this is something that could potentially affect children in Oklahoma negatively by taking away some of those resources. So I think this is great. And so again, thanks so much, Claire. Amazing Oklahoman. Looking forward to seeing what God does in your life in the next few years. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us about SEL today.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me spread this.